To understand why grown adults were panicking in a classified room, you need the timeline. And I promise you, this timeline is worse than we remember. Let's go through it. Attorney General Pam Bondi goes on Fox News and says that Epstein client list is, quote, sitting on my desk right now. May 2025. Bondi says the FBI is reviewing, quote, tens of thousands of videos. July. In her own Justice Department releases a memo saying there's no incriminating client list and no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals. So which is it? Is there a list? Or did this list never exist? Is it on her desk? Or is this all fabricated fake news? Now here's the part most coverages miss. The people angriest about this were not the Democrats. They were Trump's own base. Laura Loomer called Bondi a coward. She said she didn't even sign her name to the memo. Then Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene said this in 2025. I'd like to see all this information come out. Which information is she talking about? She's talking about the client list from the Epstein case. Republican Thomas Massie helped force a discharge petition in Congress to pry the files loose. As we're going through all this, I'm reading off this list of all the big moments for this entire investigation, and it just gets darker and darker. This was never the left versus the right. This is administration versus its own voters. This cost people their job. Let's go through this. Pam Bondi is fired. The new Attorney General, Todd Blanche, Trump's former personal defense lawyer. In March, Blanche went on a podcast and said there's no tapes, no blackmail. Meanwhile, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, a man who was literally Epstein's next door neighbor in New York, said on a different podcast that Epstein was the greatest blackmailer ever. The men around him participated. We're going through this piece by piece, and we're seeing how dark and dirty this road goes. I can't believe this isn't more of a topic every single day. It really got brushed under the rug. 3 top officials, 3 completely different stories. That's where we stood a few months ago. I made a video about it, but this week we found out what was happening all behind closed doors. And honestly, it's a lot wilder than we thought, and all the contradictions related to it, they're terrifying. Before I show you what's happening in that room and we could talk about it, if you're into this kind of breakdown where we actually go through what's on the record, mix it with a little bit of personal opinion and a little bit of history, no screaming, no conspiracies. Do me a favor, hit like and subscribe. I'm a Paralympian, a history nerd, just moved back to the States, been abroad for years, and I'm trying to build this channel the way that I want. I want a non-BS conversation about the news. I want a non-BS look about what's happening in the world and see if we can find some middle ground. If you like this, like, subscribe. Generally love to have a conversation with everybody. The Situation Room. Here is what the New York Times found. Let's read through it. First, the sourcing because it matters here. Everything as a section comes from the New York Times, reporting by Maggie, Haberman, and Jonathan Swan. From their book Change, which comes out June 23rd, the White House disputes it. I'll tell you at the end if I find it credible or not. But when you're sourcing this, you have to weigh the information yourself. You have to be able to go back and forth. Do you trust these people? Is this credible information? Where were they? What do they have to gain out of this? So here's the report. Trump's top aides were so afraid of these leaks of handling of the Epstein files that they had multiple damage control meetings inside the Situation Room. When you think of the Situation Room, as we mentioned earlier, these are very major moments in American history, war moments. Why are we putting everybody in there for an Epstein case that apparently they had nothing to do with in such a room with such high stakes? The Vice President JD Vance, the Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, gathered the most secure room in the U.S. government, starting this last summer to figure out how to manage the Epstein story. That's what scares me most about this story, is the word manage. How do we manage this story? This is a non-partisan issue. There is people on that list from all walks of life, from all sides of the political spectrum, and the fact that this gets brushed under the rug as much as we can is truly terrifying. They weren't using this room to handle a war crisis. They were using it in hopes that nobody would find out exactly what was said in that room. So let's dive into some of the meetings. Inside those meetings, per the Times, shouting matches, officials trying to get each other fired, Bondi clashing with the FBI leadership over strategy, aides, quote, determined to keep their rising sense of panic out of the public view, while the effort was, quote, consuming the highest ranks of the administration. These were tense meetings. People were going after each other. Some people had different information. Some people, I'm sure, wanted to stay quiet. Either way, none of this information was meant to leave that room. Now, there's this idea that stopped me cold when I started to think about this. According to the reporting again, the Vice President of the United States floated the idea of sending Tucker Carlson into a federal prison to interview Maxwell, a convicted sex trafficker. This is obviously a PR stunt. The real suggestion is moving the meeting per the New York Times. Now, why do I believe this reporting? Here's why. The book's whole thesis is that Trump cannot let Epstein go. He is. It's something that is always on his mind, and in modern way of talking, it triggers him. This changes the entire atmosphere of the White House. This excerpt dropped on Tuesday. Wednesday morning, Joe Scarborough mentions it on Morning Joe. Within the hour, Trump is on Truth Social attacking him. This cannot be the world we live in. If somebody reports something, I don't care what side, and the other side begins to attack them, people talk about what makes democracies fall. This is one of the first steps. The report said just mentioning Epstein at the White House would set off the White House and Donald Trump. They said no. They proved it before lunch that this is exactly the case. Watergate did not consume the Nixon presidency because of the burglary. It consumed it because of the slow scandal afterwards. It consumed it because of the lie. We talked about this before. What are the costs of lies? And we're seeing this now in modern day. History just keeps repeating itself. The secret meetings and the paranoia about the leaks, the loyalty test. As we're reading through all this, we're seeing that this is a common trend at the highest level. People can be blackmailed. People might have to lie. Really important people might have to lie. And this is the world that we're living in. And when you have a situation of this magnitude, people were abused. Very wealthy, very powerful people went to an island to abuse people. We're living in a sad scandal world. When managing the scandal becomes a job itself, the scandal is no longer just a side part of history. It becomes the story. I'm not going to tell you what's in the Epstein files. I don't know what's in the Epstein files. I don't think a lot of people know what's in the Epstein files. I'm telling you the optics of how it looks. Nobody outside that room knows, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm also some person that has it on the inside. No matter where you land on the political spectrum, something happened here. And until we can get to the bottom of it, we have to stop focusing on other aspects of the news. We have to stop finding different stories and forgetting about stories a week later, and then maybe a month later bring it up again when there's new news. This was a big deal. This man killed himself in prison. We make jokes about it on TV shows and award shows. But what happened? What is the truth behind it? And when it all comes out, what are we gonna do as a society to fix this problem? Can it be fixed? Are we willing to look ourselves in the mirror as a country and as a world to understand that these kind of things are happening all over the place all the time? And just because it's a prominent person here in the US, just because he's a powerful man in our orbit, doesn't mean that it's not happening everywhere. But here's what's on the record in the fact show. This administration, just like all others, promised transparency. With that, they have released roughly half the files according to Congress. They fired their own attorney general over this, and that's per the New York Times. This was all running damage control. It was meant to be running damage control. They had the meeting to make sure that it would never leave. This is a war room meeting. That means you are going into it with a war strategy. And we think of war, we don't ever think of the propaganda and how to attack the media. We just assume and we trust the people that are in charge. This is not the case. And we need to ask ourselves, why are we putting these people in this room, a war room, for something that had nothing to do with them? The optics of it don't look good. I would not have any kind of dog in a fight for a situation that had nothing to do with me. I'm not going to have a meeting about something that I was not there for or part of. This is not how it works. If you ask me what do I think about the JFK assassination and I answered it as if I was there, no, I can only take guesses and conspiracy theories. I'm not going to have a full-on meeting about it to make sure my people got the damage control they needed to control the narrative, control the story. An unexamined life is not worth living, and neither is an unexamined government. I'm Jared. This is A View from Here. See you in the next one.